Week 10 of the fantasy football season, and here's a few kickers I have as sleeper options this week. The first guy, Greg Zuerlein of the New York Jets. He's pretty much been their best offensive weapon this season, is Greg Zuerlein, because this New York Jet team, that's all they do is settle for field goals this year. The last few games, Greg Zuerlein, at least 2-3 opportunities per week. So week 5 at Denver, 15. Week 6 versus the Eagles, 14. Week 8 at the Giants, 7. And week 9 versus the Chargers, 8 fantasy points. So this week here, Sunday Night Football at the Vegas Raiders, a defense which is a bend but don't break type of defense depending on the matchup. We saw last week 30-6 this Raider team won. So right now, Greg Zuerlein, he's had a great season kicking the football. He's been very accurate, and he's getting back to where he was with the Los Angeles Rams, where he's pretty much not missing anything, is Greg Zuerlein. Available in 91% of fantasy leagues. This Jet team cannot finish drives in the end zone, and I think once again Zuerlein's going to get minimum 7-8 fantasy points in this game, and he's definitely a kicker, a sleeper, like I mentioned, out there in 91% of fantasy leagues. Next kicker, Chase McLaughlin of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So Chase McLaughlin, he's had a couple decent games this season. And last week, the biggest game of the season for him, 16 fantasy points at the Houston Texans. So this week here, week 10 versus Tennessee Titans, a bend but don't break type of defense, where teams definitely have had trouble in the red zone versus the Titans this season, but they could give up the 4th most fantasy points to kickers on the season. So McLaughlin last year, he was a solid kicker with the Indianapolis Colts, finishing in the top 15 in fantasy points with this Colt team. And for the most part, anywhere from 6 to 9 fantasy points you could expect from McLaughlin with this Tampa Bay Buck team. So this week here, with a good matchup on paper and available in 98% of fantasy leagues, with the weather most likely being good in Tampa Bay compared to obviously some other states with the winter coming and the cold weather, he's a sleeper option this week. And the third and final kicker I have as a sleeper this week, it's Chad Ryland of the New England Patriots. So the rookie Ryland, we know he beat out Nick Folk in training camp, and then Folk got traded away to the Tennessee Titans. And Ryland, he has a big boot. I know he's missed a decent amount of field goals over the last few weeks, but right now, great matchup versus the Colts. I give up the most fantasy points to kickers on the season. So it's an indoor game over there in Germany, which is always a plus for a kicker, obviously. This New England Patriot offense has had trouble all season finding the end zone and punching into the end zone. And I think Ryland, with a good matchup on paper and the indoor game available right now, 99% of fantasy leagues, could be an option in deeper leagues as a sleeper. So that's a few kickers I have as sleepers here for week 10 of the fantasy football season.